For 20 years, Nathan Cross wired his fortune home, believing he was building his father a life of comfort. But when he returned to Millionaire, he found Samuel Cross slumped on the same street corner where he'd once taught him to work with his hands, holding a torn cardboard sign that read "Anything helps." The trusted family friend who cashed every check had forged the documents, seized the family home, and left Samuel begging on the same block where he once had a workshop. As Nathan knelt beside him, his father flinched, expecting a stranger, not a son. The real horror was just 3 blocks away, and the thief was not planning to let them leave without a fight. Nathan Cross left his hometown with nothing, built a fortune in Dubai, and returned after 20 years to rescue his father. But the proud carpenter he remembered was now a homeless man begging on the same block where he once had a workshop. Every dollar Nathan had wired home had been stolen by a trusted friend who forged documents, seized the family home, and left Samuel on the curb 8 years ago. The predator was still living 3 blocks away, and he wasn't about to let Samuel walk free with the truth. Nathan helped his father to his feet. The old man's legs were unsteady, his frame hollowed by years of hunger and cold. They walked 2 blocks to a small diner, the same one where Samuel used to bring young Nathan for pancakes after Sunday service. The vinyl seats were cracked now, but the smell of burnt coffee was the same. Samuel clutched the cardboard sign to his chest as if it were a shield. Nathan ordered 2 plates of eggs and toast, but his father only stared at the food, his hands trembling. Nathan had spent 20 years in Dubai building a construction empire from nothing. He had done it for this moment, to give his father the retirement he deserved. Samuel Cross was no ordinary carpenter. He had once been the man who could look at a pile of lumber and see a home. He had built half the porches in their neighborhood, never charging more than people could pay. And when Nathan was 17, Samuel had sold his own toolbox to buy his son a one-way ticket to Dubai so he could chase a better life. Nathan folded his hands on the table. "The money I sent, Dad, every month. I wired it to Marcus Webb. You told me he was the one you trusted." Samuel closed his eyes. Then, with a voice as thin as paper, he began to speak. Marcus Webb had been a family friend for 40 years. He and Samuel grew up on the same street, worked the same job sites, and stood as godfather to Nathan. When Nathan left, it was Marcus who offered to manage the money, to look after Samuel, and make sure every dollar reached him. He had paperwork, a joint account, all the trappings of a man who could be trusted. Nathan, half a world away, had no reason to doubt. But from the very first month, Marcus cashed the checks and kept the cash. He showed up at Samuel's door with $100 and a story about how Nathan's business was struggling, how he was barely scraping by. He told Samuel that Nathan had asked him to handle the money so he wouldn't have to face his father's disappointment. Samuel, too proud to burden his son, believed every word. He didn't call Nathan to complain. He just learned to live on less. The turning point came 8 years ago. Marcus presented Samuel with a stack of legal documents. He claimed Nathan had asked him to take over the house to protect it from some imaginary business debt. Samuel's eyesight was failing. He couldn't read the fine print, but Marcus put a pen in his hand and guided his fingers. "It's just paperwork, Sam," he said. "I'm protecting your boy's inheritance." Samuel signed. 3 months later, a sheriff's deputy arrived with an eviction notice. Marcus Webb now owned the house, the workshop, and every tool inside it. Samuel became homeless that week. He tried calling Nathan, but the number he had was old and disconnected. He didn't know Nathan's new Dubai phone. Marcus had carefully severed the line between father and son, and then he settled into the stolen house like a king. He renovated the kitchen, planted a new garden, and even hung a sign outside that read Webb Family Home. The neighborhood watched in confusion, but no one dared challenge a man with forged deeds and a cold smile. Nathan sat in the diner, the food growing cold, his hands now clenched into fists. His father whispered, "He still lives there, son. 3 blocks from where you found me, and he watches. He made it clear that if I ever spoke to you, if you ever came back, he'd make sure I disappeared for good." That was why Samuel flinched when Nathan knelt beside him. He thought his son was a ghost, or that Marcus had sent someone to finally silence him. Nathan looked out the diner window. In the distance, he could see the old neighborhood, the steeple of the church, and the row of houses where he'd grown up. One of those homes now belonged to the man who had stolen everything, and that man had just seen Nathan Cross walk into town. The door of the diner opened. A shadow fell across the table. Nathan looked up into the face of Marcus Webb, who wore the same oily grin he'd had 20 years ago. "Nathan," Marcus said, sliding into the booth uninvited. "I heard you were back. Let's talk about what happens next." Marcus Webb slid into the booth as if he owned the place. In a way, he did. He owned half the neighborhood now. He ordered coffee with the ease of a man who had spent years practicing innocence. Samuel Cross pressed himself against the cracked vinyl, his cardboard sign still clutched to his chest. The father who had once stood tall enough to frame a house now seemed to shrink under the weight of a single presence. Nathan watched the man who had been his godfather, the same man who had taught him to ride a bike, who had brought over casseroles when his mother died. Now that man wore a tailored shirt and a gold watch that probably cost more than Samuel's entire workshop had ever earned. "You look good, Nathan," Marcus said, stirring his coffee slowly. "Dubai treated you well." Nathan's voice was ice. "You stole my father's life." Marcus smiled, patient and practiced. He had rehearsed this. "Stole? I preserved it. Your father was about to lose everything to back taxes. I stepped in, I paid the debts, and I kept the roof over his head until the paperwork was settled." He signed willingly. Samuel flinched but said nothing. Nathan leaned forward. "He signed because you tricked him. He couldn't read the documents. And you emptied the joint account. $300,000, Marcus. I have the wire transfers." Marcus's smile didn't waver, but something behind his eyes shifted. "Joint account for your father's care. I managed it responsibly. There were expenses, medical, food, the house repairs. It all added up. And your father never complained, did you, Sam?" Samuel's lips moved, but no sound came. The terror was a physical thing in the booth. Nathan realized his father wasn't just afraid of losing his home. He was afraid of this man. He had been living under Marcus's shadow for 8 years, conditioned to silence. Marcus hadn't just stolen money and property. He had dismantled a man's will. Nathan pulled out his phone and placed it on the table. "I've already been to the county recorder's office this morning. I pulled every property transfer with your name on it. 3 other elderly homeowners, Lila Chambers, Frank Olson, Maria Gutierrez. All of them lost their homes to you. All of them signed while medically vulnerable or legally blind." The coffee cup paused halfway to Marcus's lips. In that tiny hesitation, Nathan saw truth crack the polished surface. He had investigated before coming to the diner, while his father rested. The pattern was unmistakable. Marcus preyed on the old and the isolated, befriending them, gaining power of attorney, then sweeping their assets into his name. Marcus set the cup down with a sharp click. "Those are baseless accusations. I helped those people when no one else would. Their families abandoned them, just like you abandoned your father." He leaned in, voice dropping. "If you dig into my business, you'll regret it. I have friends in this town. The sheriff, the judges, the newspaper editor. You're a stranger here now. A wealthy foreigner coming to cause trouble. Who do you think they'll believe?" Nathan didn't blink. "I'll believe the forensic accountant I hired this morning, the one who's already tracing the transfers, and the attorney in the state capitol who specializes in elder financial abuse. They've seen your kind before, Marcus, and they've put men like you in prison." For the first time, Marcus's composure cracked. A flash of genuine anger crossed his face, the mask slipping to reveal something feral. "You think you can walk in here after 20 years and undo what I've built? Your father is a homeless beggar. His word means nothing. And you're just a guilty son trying to buy back your conscience." Nathan stood up, helping his father to his feet. Samuel's legs shook, but he rose, clutching his son's arm. "We're leaving," Nathan said. "And when we come back, it will be with a sheriff who isn't on your payroll and a judge who doesn't golf with you." Marcus didn't stand. He just looked up at them with cold, dead eyes. Be careful, Nathan. The streets can be dangerous for old men. Accidents happen. Your father knows that. He's seen things. The threat hung in the air like smoke. Nathan felt his father's grip tighten on his arm. He didn't respond. He simply walked out, guiding Samuel through the diner door into the pale afternoon light. They drove to a hotel on the edge of town, one with a lobby camera and a night clerk. Nathan booked 2 adjoining rooms under a different name. He ordered room service and made sure his father ate for the first time in days. Then, while Samuel slept, Nathan sat by the window and opened his laptop. He worked through the night, pulling every public record he could find. Marcus Webb had started small, a reverse mortgage scam targeting widows, then graduated to full property theft. The 3 names Nathan had thrown at him were just the beginning. There were at least 7 confirmed cases, all with the same pattern: forged signatures, manipulated witnesses, and terrified victims who died in poverty while Marcus renovated their homes and sold them for profit. But the most disturbing discovery came near dawn. Nathan found a police report from 6 years ago, filed by an elderly man named Harold Kemp. Harold had accused Marcus of forging his deed and had attempted to press charges. 2 weeks after filing, Harold was found dead at the bottom of a stairwell. The coroner ruled it an accident. The case was closed. Nathan stared at the screen, a chill moving through him. Marcus wasn't just a con man. He was a man who had learned that violence was the ultimate silencing tool. And now, Nathan's father was his latest target. At sunrise, Nathan's phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. It contained a single image, a photo of their hotel room door taken from the hallway. The message below read, "You checked in under the name Davidson. Cute, but I know every room in this town. Leave by noon, or I'll visit your father myself." Nathan looked over at Samuel, still asleep but restless, his thin chest rising and falling. He knew then that this wasn't just a legal battle. It was a fight for survival, and Marcus Webb had already drawn first blood. Nathan did not wait for noon. He woke his father, packed their few belongings, and slipped out of the hotel through a service exit. The morning streets were empty, the fog thick and gray, muffling their footsteps. Samuel moved slowly, his breathing shallow, but he did not complain. Fear had made him silent again. Nathan drove them to a motel 40 miles outside town, a place with no digital check-in where you paid cash and the clerk didn't ask questions. He rented a single ground floor room under yet another name, Henderson, and locked the deadbolt behind them. Then he made a call, not to the police. The text message had proven that Marcus had eyes inside the hotel, possibly inside the sheriff's department too. Nathan called Margaret Chen, the forensic accountant he'd retained. She answered on the first ring, her voice crisp and alert despite the early hour. "I've been waiting for your update," she said. "The picture's worse than you thought." Nathan leaned against the motel wall, phone pressed to his ear. "Tell me." Margaret had spent the night tracing the stolen funds. Marcus Webb had not simply pocketed Nathan's wire transfers. He had routed them through a chain of shell companies, using the money to purchase 7 additional properties across 3 counties. He owned rental units, a commercial building, and a small strip mall. All of them were funded by defrauding elderly homeowners. And he had a partner, someone inside the county assessor's office, who flagged vulnerable properties and fed Marcus the names. "It's not just forgery," Margaret said. "It's an organized criminal enterprise. I've already contacted the state attorney general's office. They have an elder fraud task force that's been looking for a pattern exactly like this. But here's the part you need to hear. Marcus Webb isn't his real name." Nathan's blood went cold. What? 22 years ago, he was convicted in Arizona for embezzlement and fraud under the name Martin Wade. He served 6 years, then vanished. He resurfaced in your hometown with a new identity built from scratch. He's been hiding in plain sight for 2 decades. The revelation hit Nathan like a punch. His godfather was not a family friend who had turned bad. He was a fugitive who had infiltrated their lives with calculated precision. The barbecues, the birthday parties, the offer to manage the money, all of it was a con from the very beginning. Nathan's father had trusted a phantom. Now the pieces began to reassemble. Marcus had chosen Samuel not because he was vulnerable, but because he had a son overseas. A son who would send money blindly. Nathan's success in Dubai had unknowingly made his father the perfect target. Nathan looked at Samuel, who sat on the edge of the motel bed, staring at the wall. "Dad," he said, keeping his voice steady. "How did you meet Marcus? Where did he come from?" Samuel spoke slowly, as if unburying a memory he'd long ago sealed. "He showed up at a job site 30 years ago. Said he was new in town, looking for work. I hired him to help frame a house. He was good with his hands. We became friends." He paused, his brow furrowing. But looking back, he never talked about his past. Not his family, not where he grew up. He just appeared. Nathan relayed this to Margaret. They had a timeline now. Marcus, or Martin Wade, had chosen their family the moment he rolled into town. He had waited, built trust, and then systematically dismantled their lives from the inside. By mid-morning, the state task force had assigned an investigator, a stoic man named Agent Reyes. He spoke to Nathan in clipped sentences, already running background checks. "We've had our eye on a real estate fraud ring in that county," Reyes said. "Your case gives us the thread we needed to pull. But there's something else you should know." Nathan's grip tightened on the phone. He was learning to dread those words. "We pulled the file on Harold Kemp, the man who died after accusing Webb of forgery. The original coroner's report noted bruising on his upper arms and a head wound that was inconsistent with a simple fall. The case was closed because the sheriff at the time declared it an accident. That sheriff retired 3 years ago and moved to a beach house in Florida. Guess whose name is on the property records for that beach house?" Nathan didn't need to guess. Marcus Webb had bought a sheriff, and if he could buy one, he could buy others. The threat from the hotel hallway was not a bluff. It was a pattern, repeated over decades. "Agent Reyes," Nathan said, "my father is in danger. We've left town, but I don't know how long we can hide. I'm sending a protective detail. They'll be at your motel in 2 hours. In the meantime, keep your door locked. We're moving to arrest Webb, but we need your father's sworn statement. Without it, the case is weaker. Can he testify?" Nathan looked at Samuel, who had not spoken for nearly an hour. The old man's hands were folded in his lap, the cardboard sign now propped against the nightstand. "Dad," Nathan said, kneeling in front of him, "I need you to do something harder than anything you've ever done. I need you to tell them everything. You're the only one who can put him away." Samuel's eyes, glassy and exhausted, slowly focused on his son. He had been silent for 8 years, beaten down by a predator who had stolen his voice along with his home. But buried somewhere beneath the shame was the carpenter who had once framed houses with his bare hands, the father who had sold his own tools to send his son to a better life. "I'll talk," Samuel whispered, "but he'll come for us before they can arrest him. He always does." As if summoned by those words, Nathan's phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time, the message was a live photo, a short video clip. It showed the front of the motel where they were staying, the neon sign flickering in the daylight. The camera panned slowly, then zoomed in on the door of their room. The message beneath it read, "Found you. Checkout time is permanent." Nathan pulled the curtains closed and positioned his father in the bathroom, the only room without windows. He called Agent Reyes and gave him the update, his voice calm but urgent. Then he waited, counting the minutes until the protective detail would arrive. But the next sound he heard was not a knock from a state trooper. It was the soft click of the electronic lock on the motel room door, the mechanism whirring as if someone had a master key. Nathan's heart stopped. He grabbed a heavy lamp from the desk, the cord trailing, and stood between his father and the door. The handle turned. The door swung open, revealing the silhouette of a man against the bright morning sun. And then a voice, familiar and cold, said, "Nathan, did you really think you could outrun me? This is my town. Every room, every lock, every person. Now, it's time we finish this." Nathan did not lower the lamp. His eyes adjusted to the light, and there stood Marcus Webb. filling the doorway with the casual menace of a man who had never been held accountable. Behind him, the morning sun cast a long shadow across the motel carpet. But something was wrong. Marcus was not alone. A second figure stepped into view. A woman in a dark pantsuit, her expression sharp and unreadable. She held up a badge. "Agent Reyes, State Attorney General's office," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "Marcus Webb, you are under arrest for elder fraud, forgery, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit murder. Step away from the door." Marcus froze, his confidence cracking like thin ice. He turned his head slightly, and Nathan saw it. The flicker of calculation, the desperate search for an exit. But the hallway behind him was now filled with uniformed officers, their weapons drawn. Marcus had walked into a trap of his own making. The protective detail had arrived not after him, but before him. Agent Reyes had used Nathan's location as bait, feeding it through a compromised dispatcher Marcus still believed was loyal. The moment Marcus stepped onto the property, he sealed his own fate. "You think this will stick?" Marcus spat, his voice rising. "I have connections. Lawyers, judges, I'll be out before the ink dries on your report." Reyes didn't flinch. "Your connections are currently being arrested as well. The county assessor's clerk, the retired sheriff in Florida, and 2 notaries who rubber-stamped your forgeries. We've been building this case for 6 months. You just handed us the final piece." She read him his rights while officers cuffed his hands behind his back. Marcus glared at Nathan, his eyes promising a retribution that would never come. "You're a fool," he hissed. "Your father was nothing. A broken old man I kept alive out of pity." Nathan stepped forward, close enough to see the sweat on Marcus's brow. "You took his home. You took his dignity. But you made one mistake. You let him live. And as long as he lived, he could speak." Samuel Cross emerged from the bathroom, leaning on the doorframe. His body still trembled, but his eyes, for the first time in 8 years, held a flicker of the fire Nathan remembered. He looked at the monster who had destroyed him and did not look away. "I remember everything," Samuel said, his voice raw but steady. "The day you put the pen in my hand, the day you changed the locks, the day you told me if I spoke to anyone, you'd kill my son. I remember it all." That was the testimony Agent Reyes needed. It wasn't just a financial crime anymore. It was a pattern of terror, coercion, and attempted murder. The case would not rest on one victim, but on a chorus of them, the other elderly homeowners Marcus had destroyed. The widow Lila Chambers, the veteran Frank Olson, the grandmother Maria Gutierrez. One by one, they came forward, emboldened by Samuel's courage. They had all been silenced for years, afraid of a man who had seemed untouchable. Now he was in a cell, and their voices filled the courtroom. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The jury saw the forged documents, the shell company records, the text messages threatening Nathan and his father. They heard from a handwriting expert who proved Samuel's signature was a crude trace, not a natural pen stroke. They saw the beach house deed in the former sheriff's name, the bank statements showing systematic looting, and the chilling testimony of a motel clerk who had given Marcus a master key for a $100 bribe. Marcus Webb, born Martin Wade, was found guilty on 27 counts. He was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. His assets were seized and liquidated. The stolen properties, including Samuel's house, were returned to their rightful owners or their heirs. The neighborhood watch that had once ignored Samuel's suffering now held a block party to welcome him home. Nathan bought the house outright, free and clear. He renovated every room, replacing the rotten floorboards his father had once walked, restoring the workshop where Samuel had taught him to measure twice and cut once. He installed a ramp for the days when his father's legs were too weak for stairs. He planted a garden out front, with roses just like his mother used to grow. But the final surprising detail lay not in the house or the courtroom. It came 3 months after Marcus was sentenced, when a safety deposit box registered under the name Martin Wade was discovered in a Phoenix bank. Inside was a collection of mementos Marcus had kept from his victims: watches, rings, photographs, and among them was a small wooden cross carved by hand with the initials SC burned into the back. Samuel Cross had made it for Marcus Webb as a gift decades ago, when they were still friends on a job site. Marcus had kept it not as a token of guilt, but as a trophy. It was the final proof that the man had never felt remorse, only possession. Nathan held the cross in his palm, the wood worn smooth by someone else's hands. He brought it to his father, who sat in his new chair by the window, the morning light warming his face. Samuel took the cross and stared at it for a long time. Then he placed it on the windowsill, where it caught the light, and said, "It's just wood. What matters is still here." Nathan sat beside him, and for the first time in 20 years, father and son were truly home. The truth had not just freed them, it had rebuilt them, piece by piece, until the past was no longer a prison, but a foundation for the rest of their lives. Nathan Cross spent 20 years building a fortune, but the truest wealth he found was the father he'd almost lost. Their reunion isn't just a story about stolen money or forged signatures. It's a mirror held up to a quiet crisis playing out in neighborhoods all around us. Elder financial abuse thrives in silence. It wears the mask of a helpful friend, a trusted advisor, even a godfather. It prospers when families are separated by distance and when pride keeps the vulnerable from asking for help. Samuel survived because he held on long enough for his son to come home, but not every parent gets that chance. The question that lingers is not about Marcus Webb. He's exactly where he belongs. The real question is about the rest of us. How many Samuels are still out there, clutching cardboard signs or hiding overdue bills behind polite smiles, waiting for someone to notice? And when we do notice, will we have the courage to act, even when the predator is someone we once called family? Nathan chose to fight, not with blind rage, but with truth and a paper trail that left no shadow for lies to hide in. He taught his father that it was never too late to speak, and in doing so, he gave dozens of other victims their voices back. If this story moved you, share it with someone who might need to hear that it's never too late to stand up. Tell us in the comments, could you forgive someone who did this to your parents, or would you let the law take its full course? And if you believe that dignity in old age isn't a privilege but a right, subscribe now for more stories that remind us what really matters.